The distress signal was weak. It came through the static like a whisper, repeating the same words over and over again in a language that most ships would have ignored. But Lieutenant Maya Reyes did not ignore it. She leaned forward in her seat and adjusted the frequency until the voice became clear. "This is Fleet Admiral Verkeithen of the Kethvari Refugee Fleet. We are lost in the Varanthi Nebula. Our navigation systems have failed. We have 42,000 civilians aboard 12 ships. Food supplies are running low. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help." Maya turned to look at Captain Daniel Carson. He stood near the main viewport of the rescue vessel Starlight Horizon, watching the swirling colors of the nebula in the distance. His face was calm, but his eyes showed that he was already thinking. "How long has that signal been broadcasting?" he asked. "Based on the timestamp, 3 weeks, Maya replied. "They've been lost in there for 3 weeks. Daniel walked over to the navigation console and looked at the star charts. The Varanthi Nebula was marked in red. Every pilot in the galaxy knew what that meant. The nebula was filled with electromagnetic interference that destroyed all electronic navigation. Ships that went in rarely came out. It was a place that even the most advanced civilizations avoided. Have any other ships responded to the distress call?" Daniel asked. Maya shook her head. "I checked the communication logs. The Galactic Council classified this as an unrescuable situation. The Torvan Empire said it was too dangerous. The Syndicate Alliance offered their condolences but refused to send ships, so everyone just gave up on them." "Yes, sir." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he pressed the intercom button that connected to the engine room. "Sam, come up to the bridge. We need to talk." A few minutes later, Chief Engineer Sam Holloway arrived. He was a large man with rough hands and oil stains on his uniform. Sam had spent 30 years fixing ships, and there was no problem he couldn't solve if given enough time and wire. "What's going on?" Sam asked. Daniel explained the situation. 12 ships, 42,000 civilians, lost in the most dangerous nebula in the sector. No one willing to help. Sam scratched his chin and looked at the nebula through the viewport. "The Varanthi kills electronic navigation. That's the problem, right? All their fancy computers just stop working in there." "That's right," Maya said. "The electromagnetic interference scrambles everything. Even basic sensors become useless." Sam smiled slowly. "But it doesn't kill everything, does it? Magnetism still works. Light still works. Gravity still works." Maya understood what he was saying. "You want to navigate the old way, like sailors on Earth before satellites." "Exactly," Sam said. "Dead reckoning. Visual observation. Magnetic compass. Paper charts. The stuff our ancestors used to cross oceans without any technology at all." Daniel looked at both of them. "You think we can do it?" "I think we can try," Sam replied. "The question is whether we're willing to take the risk." Daniel turned back to the viewport. Somewhere inside that swirling cloud of gas and radiation, 42,000 people were waiting for help that would never come. They had children. They had families. They had been running from a war on their homeworld, hoping to find safety somewhere new. And now they were going to die in the dark, simply because no one was brave enough to go after them. "Maya," Daniel said quietly, "send a message to the crew. Tell them to meet me in the cargo bay in 10 minutes. The cargo bay was the largest open space on the Starlight Horizon. When Daniel arrived, all 40 members of his crew were already waiting. Engineers, medics, pilots, technicians. They stood in rows, looking at their captain with curious eyes. Daniel did not waste time with long speeches. He told them about the distress signal. He told them about the Kethvari fleet. He told them about the 42,000 refugees who had been abandoned by everyone else. "I'm not going to order anyone to do this," he said. The Varanti Nebula is dangerous. Our navigation will fail the moment we enter. We'll have to guide ourselves using methods that haven't been used in centuries. There's a real chance we won't come back out." He paused and looked at the faces of his crew. "But there are people in there who need help. Children who are scared. Families who are starving. And everyone else in the galaxy has already decided to let them die." The cargo bay was silent. Then Maya stepped forward. "I volunteer." Sam stepped forward next. "Same here." One by one, every member of the crew stepped forward. Engineers, medics, pilots, all of them. Not a single person stayed behind. Daniel felt something warm in his chest. Pride, maybe. Or hope? He nodded to his crew. "Then let's go save some people." The Starlight Horizon changed course and headed toward the nebula. As they got closer, the swirling clouds grew larger in the viewport, filling the entire view with shades of purple, blue, and red. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Maya prepared the backup navigation equipment. She pulled out paper star charts that had been stored in a cabinet for years, never used. She calibrated a magnetic compass that most people would have called a museum piece. She set up visual marker systems and calculated drift patterns based on the nebula's known rotation. "Once we go in, we lose all electronic navigation," she reminded everyone. "No GPS, no sensors, no autopilot. We fly by eye and by math." Sam had already disabled the systems that would be affected, preventing false readings from confusing the crew. "We're as ready as we'll ever be," he said. Daniel sat in the captain's chair and looked at the nebula ahead. Somewhere inside that chaos, 42,000 people were waiting. "Take us in," he ordered. The Starlight Horizon crossed the boundary of the Varanti Nebula. Immediately, every electronic navigation screen went dark. Warning lights flashed for a moment, then went silent. The ship was now flying blind, but Maya was already working. She looked at her paper charts, checked the compass, and made calculations by hand. "Adjust heading 3 degrees to port," she said calmly. The pilot followed her instructions. Outside, the nebula swirled around them like a living thing. Colors shifted and changed. Electromagnetic pulses crackled in the distance like silent lightning. Daniel watched it all with steady eyes. "We're coming," he said quietly, to no one in particular. "Just hold on. We're coming." The Kethvari flagship Eternal Dawn drifted slowly through the purple clouds of the nebula. Its engines were running on minimum power to save fuel. Its lights were dimmed to conserve energy. Inside, 42,000 refugees waited in crowded rooms, not knowing if help would ever come. Fleet Admiral Verkeithen stood on the bridge, looking at screens that showed nothing but static. His skin was pale gray, and his 4 eyes were tired from weeks without proper rest. He had commanded ships for over 60 years, but he had never felt so helpless. "Admiral," said a soft voice behind him, "you need to eat something." Verkeithen turned to see healer Silmyra standing near the door. She was the chief medical officer of the fleet, responsible for the health of everyone aboard all 12 ships. Her green robes were wrinkled, and she looked almost as tired as he felt. "I'm not hungry," Verkeithen replied. "No one is hungry anymore," Silmyra said, "but we still need to eat. The children are watching us. If we give up, they will give up too." The Admiral sighed and took the small food packet she offered. It was emergency rations, dry and tasteless, but it would keep him alive for another day. "How are the medical supplies?" he asked. Silmyra shook her head slowly. "We have enough basic medicine for maybe 1 more week. But the bigger problem is despair sickness. More and more people are losing hope. They stop eating. They stop talking. They just wait to die." Verkeithen closed his eyes. Despair sickness was common among the Kethvari during times of great stress. When hope disappeared, Their bodies simply shut down. It was happening more and more each day. "We sent distress signals," he said. "For 3 weeks, we sent signals, and no one came. No one came." The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the emergency power systems. Verkeithen looked out the viewport at the swirling nebula. Somewhere out there was open space, freedom, and safety. But they could not reach it. Their navigation computers were useless. Every direction looked the same. They were completely lost. "I will send one more signal," he said finally. "One last time, and then, I don't know." He walked to the communication station and pressed the broadcast button. His voice was tired but clear. "This is Fleet Admiral Verkeithen of the Kethvari Refugee Fleet. We are lost in the Varanthi Nebula. If anyone can hear this message, please respond. We have 42,000 civilians. We have children. We are running out of food and hope. Please, someone, help us." He released the button and stood there in silence. He did not expect a reply. No one had replied for 3 weeks. Why would today be different? Static filled the speakers. The same meaningless noise that had been their only companion for so long. And then a voice came through, clear and strong, in accented galactic common. "Kethvari Fleet, this is Captain Daniel Carson of the human vessel Starlight Horizon. We received your distress signal. We are currently inside the Varanthi Nebula, approximately 6 hours from your position. Hold on. We are coming to help." Verkeithen stared at the communication panel as if it had grown legs and started walking. Behind him, Silmyra dropped the medical scanner she was holding. It clattered on the floor, but no one noticed. "Humans?" Verkeithen whispered. "Humans are coming?" He pressed the reply button with trembling fingers. "Human vessel, this is Admiral Verkeithen. How is this possible? No ship has ever navigated the Varanthi Nebula. Our most advanced computers are useless here." The human captain's voice came back with a hint of warmth. "We're not using computers, Admiral. We're using older methods. Paper charts, magnetic compass, visual observation. The same way our ancestors crossed oceans on Earth thousands of years ago." Verkeithen did not understand all of those words, but he understood enough. The humans were navigating without technology. They were doing something that every other species had declared impossible. "You came into the nebula for us?" he asked. "That's right," Daniel replied. "Now, I need you to do something for me. Do your ships have emergency flares? Heat sources that we can see visually?" "Yes, we have emergency beacons and thermal flares." "Good. Light them. All of them. On every ship. We can't use sensors to find you, so we need to see you with our own eyes. Create as much light and heat as you can." Verkeithen turned to his bridge crew. They were all staring at him with wide eyes and open mouths. "You heard the human," he said. "Contact all ships. Tell them to light every flare they have. Tell them help is coming." The message spread through the fleet like fire. On every ship, Kethvari refugees ran to storage rooms and pulled out emergency flares. They lit them and placed them near viewports. They activated heat beacons and emergency lights. The 12 ships, which had been dark and quiet for weeks, suddenly began to glow. On the starlight horizon, Maya Reyes watched her instruments carefully. She could not use electronic sensors, but she had other tools. A simple heat detector that worked on basic physics. A telescope connected to the main viewport. Her own 2 eyes. "There," she said suddenly, pointing at a faint glow in the distance. "I see something. Bearing 274. Daniel leaned forward. Through the swirling clouds of the nebula, he could see it too. A tiny point of light, then another, and another. 12 points of light, glowing like stars in the darkness. "That's them," he said. "That's the fleet." Sam Holloway came up from the engine room. wiping his hands on a cloth. How far? 6 hours, maybe less if we push the engines, Maya replied. Daniel nodded. Push them. Those people have been waiting long enough. He opened the communication channel again. Admiral Verkeithen, we can see your lights. We are on our way. Just hold on a little longer. On the eternal dawn, Verkeithen felt something he had not felt in weeks. Hope, real hope. He looked at Silmyra, and he saw tears running down her face. Tell everyone, he said, his own voice breaking. Tell all the ships. The humans are coming. We are going to live. The message spread through the fleet. In crowded rooms and dark hallways, Kethvari refugees heard the news and began to cry. Some laughed. Some hugged each other. Children, who had been silent for days, started asking questions again. Are the humans really coming? Yes, they are really coming. Why? Why would they help us? No one had an answer to that question. The Kethvari had never met humans before. They only knew them from stories. A young species from a distant planet called Earth. Primitive by galactic standards. Violent, some said. Unpredictable, but they were the only ones who came in the nebula. The starlight horizon pushed forward through the swirling clouds. Maya calculated their course by hand, adjusting for drift and rotation. Sam kept the engines running strong. Daniel stood at the viewport, watching those tiny lights grow brighter with each passing hour. 6 hours. That was all that separated them from 42,000 lives. They would not be late. The starlight horizon emerged from the clouds and approached the Kethvari fleet. Daniel Carson looked through the viewport at the 12 ships floating in formation. They were large vessels, designed to carry thousands of passengers. Their hulls were scratched and damaged from weeks of drifting through the nebula. Their lights flickered with low power. They looked tired, like wounded animals waiting to die, but they were still alive. And now, help had arrived. Open a channel to the flagship, Daniel ordered. Maya nodded and made the connection. A moment later, Admiral Verkeithen's face appeared on the screen. He was an older Kethvari with gray skin and 4 golden eyes. His expression was a mixture of relief and disbelief. Captain Carson, he said, I am Verkeithen. I do not have words to express what your arrival means to us. Save the thanks for later, Admiral, Daniel replied with a small smile. We still need to get everyone out of here. Permission to come aboard your ship? We need to assess the situation. Of course. We will prepare a docking bay. 20 minutes later, Daniel, Maya, and Sam crossed through the airlock and stepped onto the eternal dawn. The smell hit them first. Stale air, unwashed bodies, and the faint scent of fear. The corridors were crowded with Kethvari refugees sitting against the walls. They looked up at the 3 humans with wide eyes. A young Kethvari officer met them and led them to the bridge. Along the way, Daniel noticed how thin everyone looked, how quiet the children were, how the adults held on to each other like they were afraid to let go. Admiral Verkeithen greeted them personally. Standing next to him was Healer Silmyra and a tall Kethvari with sharp features and suspicious eyes. This is Engineer Kelvarth, Verkeithen introduced. He is in charge of keeping our ships running. Kelvarth did not offer any greeting. He simply looked at the humans with obvious doubt. You came in one small ship, he said flatly. How exactly do you plan to rescue 12 vessels and 42,000 people? We're not here to carry you, Sam replied calmly. We're here to show you the way out. Your ships can still fly, right? Some of them. 3 have engine problems that we cannot fix. But even if all ships were working perfectly, it would not matter. We cannot navigate. Our computers are useless in this nebula. Sam smiled. Then let me take a look at your engines. Maybe I can help. Kelvarth's eyes narrowed. Human technology is primitive. You still use chemical fuels and mechanical systems. What could you possibly teach us? That's exactly the point, Sam said. Your ships run on quantum navigation and electronic systems. The nebula disrupts all of that. The mechanical systems don't care about electromagnetic interference. If I can modify your engines to use simpler control methods, they'll work. The HFY engineer looked at Admiral Verkeithen. The Admiral nodded. Let him try. We have nothing to lose. While Sam and Kelvorth went to the engine room, Daniel asked Verkeithen to show him the fleet's condition. They walked through the corridors of the Eternal Dawn, passing room after room filled with refugees. We were evacuating our homeworld when the war reached our cities, Verkeithen explained. We gathered everyone we could and fled into space. We thought we would find safety with our allies. But when we passed too close to the Varanti Nebula, a gravity wave pulled us in, and no one came to help, Daniel said. No, the Galactic Council said rescue was impossible. Other powers did not want to risk their ships. Verkeithen paused and looked at Daniel with his 4 tired eyes. Why did you come, Captain? Your species has no alliance with us. You owe us nothing. Daniel thought about the question for a moment. Where I come from, we have a saying. When someone is drowning, you don't ask if they're your friend before you throw them a rope. You just throw the rope. Verkeithen considered this. Your people think this way? Most of us, yeah. They continued walking until they reached the medical bay. Inside, healer Silmyra was treating patients on crowded beds. In one corner, Daniel noticed a small HFY child sitting alone. He was younger than the others, maybe 5 or 6 years old by human standards. His eyes were empty, and he stared at nothing. Who is that? Daniel asked quietly. Silmyra looked over, and her expression became sad. His name is Theron. He lost his parents during the evacuation. He has not spoken since. Daniel walked over to the child slowly. He knelt down so they were at the same eye level. Theron did not react at first. He just kept staring at the wall. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small chocolate bar. It was from his personal rations, something he had been saving for difficult days. He unwrapped it slowly and held it out. Hey there, he said softly. I know things have been scary, but it's going to be okay now. Theron's eyes moved slightly. He looked at the chocolate, then at Daniel's face. What is that? He asked. His voice was barely a whisper. It's chocolate. It's a sweet food from my planet. Do you want to try some? The child hesitated, then slowly reached out and took a small piece. He put it in his mouth and chewed. For a moment, his expression did not change. Then, very slowly, his eyes widened. It's good, he said. Daniel smiled. Yeah, it's my favorite. Theron looked at him again. Are you really going to save us? Yes, we are. Promise? Daniel put his hand gently on the child's shoulder. I promise. We're going to get everyone out of here, no matter what it takes. At that moment, Sam's voice came through Daniel's communicator. Captain, you need to come to the engine room. I figured out how to fix the ships, but we have a bigger problem. Daniel stood up and looked at Theron. I have to go now, but I'll come back, okay? The child nodded. It was a small movement, but it was the first sign of hope Silmyra had seen from him in weeks. Daniel hurried to the engine room, where Sam and Kelvorth were standing in front of a large display screen. The screen showed a map of the nebula with a large red area moving toward their position. What am I looking at? Daniel asked. An electromagnetic storm, Sam said grimly. A big one. It's been forming on the edge of the nebula, and it's moving this way. How bad? Kelvorth answered, his earlier arrogance gone. If it reaches us, it will destroy every ship in the fleet. Our shields cannot protect against that level of interference. The radiation alone would kill everyone within hours. Daniel looked at the map. How long do we have? Based on its current speed, 48 hours. Maybe less. 48 hours. 2 days to repair 12 ships and navigate them all out of a nebula that had trapped them for 3 weeks. Daniel took a deep breath and looked at Sam. Can we do it? Sam met his eyes. We can try. Then let's get to work. The next 48 hours became a race against death. Sam Holloway moved from ship to ship, teaching HFY engineers how to modify their engines using mechanical controls instead of electronic ones. It was difficult work. The HFY technology was centuries ahead of anything humans had built, but that advancement had become a weakness. They had forgotten the old ways, the simple ways that still worked when everything else failed. You need to connect the fuel lines directly to the manual override, Sam explained to a group of engineers on the third ship. Bypass the computer entirely. Let the pilot control the thrust with physical levers instead of digital commands. One of the engineers shook his head. This is so basic. We stopped using manual controls 200 years ago. And right now, that's exactly why you're stuck here, Sam replied. Sometimes old technology is the best technology. On the Eternal Dawn, Maya Reyes was training HFY navigators in the art of visual piloting. She had set up a simple system using lights and flags. Each ship would follow the one in front of it, maintaining visual contact at all times. Think of it like a chain, she explained. The Starlight Horizon leads. The first HFY ship follows us by watching our rear lights. The second ship watches the first. And so on, all the way to the last ship. What if we lose sight of the ship ahead? Asked one of the navigators. Then you slow down and send a signal flare. We stop the entire chain until visual contact is restored. No one moves alone. We all move together or we don't move at all. Admiral Verkeithen watched these preparations with amazement. The humans had been awake for over 30 hours, moving constantly between ships, teaching and training and solving problems. They did not complain. They did not rest. They simply kept working. Your people have remarkable endurance, he said to Daniel during a brief meeting on the bridge. Daniel shrugged. Humans evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. Harsh weather, dangerous predators, limited food. We learned to keep going when things got hard. It's in our nature. The other species call you primitive because of this. They're not wrong. We are primitive in many ways. But sometimes primitive is exactly what you need. The storm continued to grow. Every few hours, Kelvareth updated the time estimate, and every time, the news was worse. The storm was accelerating. They now had less than 30 hours, then 25, then 20. By the end of the second day, 9 of the 12 ships had been successfully modified. Their engines now responded to manual controls. Their navigation systems had been bypassed in favor of visual tracking. They were ready to move, but 3 ships remained broken. Their engines had suffered too much damage during the initial drift into the nebula. No amount of modification could make them fly on their own. We have to leave them behind, Kelvareth said during an emergency meeting. His voice was heavy with pain. Those 3 ships carry 8,000 people. But if we stay to help them, the storm will kill all 42,000 of us. The room fell silent. Admiral Verkeithen looked down at the table, unable to speak. Silmyra covered her face with her hands. The weight of the decision pressed down on everyone. No, Daniel said firmly. We're not leaving anyone behind. Kelvareth turned to him. Captain, I respect what you have done for us. But you must understand, it is impossible to save those ships. Their engines are completely dead. Then we tow them. Tow them? With what? Cables. Physical cables. The starlight horizon and your strongest ships can pull them. It will slow us down, but we can still make it. Calvareth stared at him like he had suggested flying by flapping their arms. That is insane. The stress on the cables during nebula turbulence could snap them at any moment. If a cable breaks while we are moving, the towed ship will spin out of control. Then we make sure the cables don't break, Daniel said. And if they do, we fix them. How? We would have to go outside. In the nebula, with electromagnetic storms all around us. Yes, we would. The Kethvari in the room exchanged looks of disbelief. Going outside a ship in the Varanthi Nebula was considered suicide. The radiation, the energy pulses, the unpredictable turbulence. No Kethvari would survive more than a few minutes. But Daniel was not. Kethvari. Kelvoreth studied the human captain for a long moment. Then, slowly, something changed in his expression. The doubt was still there, but it was mixed with something else. Respect, perhaps. Or admiration. I will pilot one of the damaged ships, Kelvoreth said quietly. If you are willing to risk your life for my people, then I will do no less. Daniel nodded. Thank you. They worked through the night. Heavy cables were connected between the working ships and the 3 disabled vessels. Sam personally inspected every connection point, testing the strength of each link. Maya calculated the exact formation needed to maintain visual contact while towing. Finally, with less than 6 hours before the storm would reach them, the fleet was ready to move. All ships. This is Captain Carson, Daniel announced over fleet-wide communications. We are about to begin our escape from the Varanthi Nebula. Stay in formation. Follow the ship ahead of you. Do not use electronic navigation. Trust your eyes and trust each other. We can do this. The starlight horizon took the lead. Behind it, the first Kethvari ship fell into position. Then the second. Then the third. The chain of 12 ships began to move through the swirling clouds, following the small human vessel toward freedom. For the first hour, everything went smoothly. Maya's navigation was precise, and the ships maintained their visual chain perfectly. The edge of the nebula grew closer. Then the turbulence hit. A pocket of unstable energy slammed into the fleet from the side. Ships rocked violently. Warning alarms blared. And in the chaos, one of the tow cables snapped. The disabled ship at the end of the chain began to spin. 800 people aboard screamed as their world turned upside down. Cable 3 is broken. Maya shouted. Daniel was already moving. Sam, suit up. We're going outside. Already on it, Captain. They reached the airlock in less than 2 minutes. Their spacesuits were heavy, designed for emergency repairs, not nebula conditions. The radiation warnings on their displays were already flashing red. This is extremely dangerous, the suit's computer warned. Exposure time should not exceed 10 minutes. Then, we better work fast, Sam said. They opened the airlock and stepped into the chaos of the Varanthi Nebula. Energy crackled around them. Colors swirled in every direction. The broken cable floated in the void, its end frayed and twisted. Sam moved first, pushing off toward the damaged connection point. Daniel followed, carrying the repair equipment. The turbulence pushed and pulled at them, trying to throw them off course. Sam reached the cable and began working immediately. His hands moved fast, splicing the broken ends together with practiced skill. Daniel held the materials steady, fighting against the forces that tried to tear them away. 3 minutes. Maya's voice came through the radio. You've been out there 3 minutes. Almost done. Sam shouted back. His fingers were going numb from the cold. The radiation was making his vision blur. But he kept working. One more connection. One more seal. Done. Sam yelled. Cable is secure. They pushed off and flew back toward the airlock. Behind them, the repaired cable pulled tight, and the spinning ship stabilized. 800 lives saved. Daniel and Sam tumbled through the airlock and collapsed on the floor. Sam's fingers were frostbitten, and Daniel's suit showed dangerous radiation levels. But they were alive. And so was everyone else. "All ships, resume formation," Daniel ordered, his voice tired but steady. "Let's get out of here." The fleet continued forward. The edge of the nebula grew closer with every passing minute. And behind them, the storm followed like a hungry predator. They were not out yet, but they were close. The edge of the nebula appeared like a wall of light in the distance. After 3 weeks of swirling darkness, the Kethvari refugees could finally see open space ahead. Stars, clear black void, freedom, but the storm was faster than anyone expected. "The storm has accelerated," Kelvorath reported from his position aboard one of the towed ships. "It will reach us before we clear the nebula." Daniel looked at the viewport. Behind the fleet, he could see the storm approaching. It was massive, a wall of electromagnetic fury that stretched across the entire visible space. Lightning crackled within it, and the color shifted from purple to angry red. "How much time do we have?" he asked. 15 minutes. Maybe less. The edge of the nebula was 20 minutes away at their current speed. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. They had come so far. They had done the impossible. And now, after everything, they were going to fall short by 5 minutes. No. He refused to accept that. "All ships, maximum speed," he ordered. "Push your engines as hard as they can go. We need every bit of power." The fleet accelerated. The working ships pulled harder on the tow cables, dragging the disabled vessels faster through the turbulent clouds. The Starlight Horizon led the way, its engines burning at full capacity, but it was not enough. The storm was gaining. Admiral Verkeithen's voice came through the communication channel. "Captain Carson, the storm is going to hit us. Our shields are too weak to survive. Keep moving, Admiral. Don't slow down. But your ship is at the back of the formation. You're towing the last vessel. The storm will reach you first." Daniel looked at Maya and Sam. They both understood what that meant. The Starlight Horizon would take the full force of the initial impact. Their small ship, already damaged from the cable repair, would not survive. "We knew the risks when we came in here," Daniel said quietly. "Keep the fleet moving. Get your people to safety." There was silence on the channel. Then Verkeithen spoke again, his voice thick with emotion. "No, I will not allow this." Before Daniel could respond, he saw something through the viewport that made his heart stop. 3 Kethvari ships were breaking formation. They were turning around, heading back toward the storm. "Admiral, what are you doing?" Daniel demanded. "Something we learned from you, Captain," Verkeithen replied. "When someone is drowning, you throw them a rope." The 3 Kethvari ships moved into position around the Starlight Horizon. They formed a triangle, with the human vessel protected in the center. "What you are doing is suicide," Daniel said. "Your ships can't handle the storm either." "Our shields are weak individually," Verkeithen explained. "But together, we can create a combined barrier. It will not stop the storm completely, but it will absorb enough energy to protect all 4 ships until we clear the nebula. The strain could tear your ships apart. Then we will be torn apart together. You did not abandon us. We will not abandon you." The storm hit. Energy waves slammed into the 3 Kethvari ships. Their shields flared bright white as they absorbed the impact. Alarms screamed across every vessel. Metal groaned under the pressure, but they held. The formation pushed forward, 4 ships moving as one. The Kethvari shields took the worst of the storm, protecting the human vessel in the center. Behind them, the rest of the fleet raced toward the edge of the nebula. Shields at 50%. reported one of the Kethvari captains. 30%, 10. Daniel watched helplessly as the Kethvari ships sacrificed themselves for his crew. He saw burn marks appearing on their hulls. He saw lights flickering and failing. He saw everything they had worked for being destroyed. And then, suddenly, light. The fleet burst through the edge of the Varanthi Nebula and into open space. The storm's fury stopped at the boundary, unable to follow them into the calm void beyond. They had made it. All 12 Kethvari ships. All 42,000 refugees. And one small human vessel. Everyone was alive. The communication channels exploded with cheering. On every ship, Kethvari refugees cried and laughed and hugged each other. Children pointed out the viewports at the stars. Seeing them clearly for the first time in weeks, Admiral Vorkethan's face appeared on Daniel's screen. The old admiral had tears running down his gray cheeks. "You saved us, Captain. You saved all of us." Daniel shook his head. "We saved each other. No, you came when no one else would. You risked your lives for strangers. You taught us that there is still good in this galaxy." Vorkethan straightened his uniform and spoke formally. "On behalf of the Kethvari people, I declare that from this day forward, humanity will be considered our closest allies. This debt will never be forgotten." The words echoed across the fleet. Every Kethvari heard them, and every Kethvari agreed. Later, after the ships were stabilized and repairs began, Daniel returned to the medical bay of the Eternal Dawn. He found Theron sitting in the same corner, but this time the child was not staring at the wall. He was watching the viewport, looking at the stars. "You came back," Theron said. "I promised I would." The child stood up slowly. In his small hands, he held a delicate object made of woven metal and crystal. It glowed faintly with inner light. "This is for you," Theron said, holding it out. "It is called a soul bond pendant. In my culture, we only give these to family." Daniel knelt down and carefully accepted the gift. "I'm honored, Theron, but I don't deserve this. I just did what anyone should do." "No," the child said seriously. "You did what no one else would do. That is different." Daniel looked at the pendant in his hands. It was beautiful, and he could feel the weight of its meaning. He placed it carefully around his neck. "Thank you," he said. "I'll keep it always." News of the rescue spread quickly across the galaxy. The story of the human ship that navigated the impossible nebula to save 42,000 refugees reached every corner of civilized space. Species that had dismissed humans as primitive suddenly began to reconsider. The Galactic Council received thousands of questions about the rescue. Other governments sent investigators to learn how it was done. Scientists studied the human navigation methods with new respect. But for Daniel Carson and his crew, none of that mattered. They did not save the Kethvari fleet for recognition or reward. They did it because it was right. 1 week after the rescue, as the Kethvari fleet prepared to continue their journey to a new home, the Starlight Horizon received a new transmission. Maya was the first to notice it. "Captain," she said with a small smile, "you might want to hear this." The message was a distress signal from a different sector of space. A Torvan cargo ship had suffered engine failure near a dangerous asteroid field. They were calling for help. Daniel looked at Maya. He looked at Sam. They both nodded. "Set a course," Daniel ordered. "Let's go see what we can do." The Starlight Horizon turned away from the Kethvari fleet and headed toward the new coordinates. Behind them, Admiral Vorkethan watched the small human ship disappear into the stars. "Where are they going?" Silmyra asked. "To help someone else," Vorkethan replied quietly. "It's what they do." The healer shook her head in wonder. "They nearly died saving us, and now they're going to risk their lives again for complete strangers?" "Yes. Why?" Vorkethan thought about the question. He thought about Captain Carson and his crew. He thought about paper charts and magnetic compasses, and a species that refused to give up even when the entire galaxy had abandoned hope. "Because they're human," he said finally. "And that, I think, is the most dangerous thing in the galaxy." The starlight horizon vanished into the distance, carrying its crew toward another impossible mission. Somewhere in the void, someone needed help. And as long as humans existed, help would always come.